going to swing right into our next presentation, which I'm very excited about. I had the honor of meeting Brett Pritts, who is a retired Drug Enforcement Administration. He worked for the DEA. He was a special agent who spent over 25 years combining.
Don't be scared, he's retired.
Retired, combating drug trafficking throughout the United States and overseas. Such an incredible man who is just dedicated his life to raising awareness around this. And I'm actually going to let Brett, you have the stage here to share your presentation, because I think what you guys are about to see and about to hear is pretty alarming. But the good news is, again, is they're working on solutions towards this. Without further ado, Brett Pritts. Here you go, brother.
Thanks, Jason. Well, first, thanks for the introduction, Jason. And a lot of people probably wonder how Jason and I met. It wasn't during his days as a reality TV. Yeah, we sold a bunch shots, right? No, that wasn't it. We live in the same community, and some friends introduced us, and we share a similar passion. But I'm very proud of Jason. He's letting himself be very vulnerable, providing services to the community too, telling his story, and he's creating a lot of hope within our own community. So thank you, Jason.
Thanks, brother.
Also want to thank Kelly and Shay, probably here somewhere, but this whole journey to put this program together started about a year ago, actually, with Jason and I, and we're now finally here. So I appreciate all the Zoom calls and all the emails and everything. But we made it here. But thank you for attending, and thank you for your service to our public. I've always had a public service background, and I understand the situation that you're all up against. And I can't thank you enough. I have a young child as well, and all these dangers and the threats of social media and stuff, it keeps me up at night. And for 25 years, I was chasing cartel members, gangsters, local drug traffickers, and what's happening right now is beyond my belief. When I first started with DEA, I was making undercover marijuana buys, and now we're in a world of highly addictive synthetic drugs being made with chemicals overseas. And I'm going to paint a picture here that's not very uplifting, but it's the truth. And I hope you find the information helpful in what you all are doing for our community. So where are we at? Unfortunately, over the last 2 years, we lost 218,000 folks to overdoses. Now, if you think about that, that's roughly about 300 people a day. So think about a plane crashing every day. What's driving that? Again, it's those synthetic drugs. We have pivoted to this landscape of not needing a crop to produce a drug. We just need a chemist and some chemicals. And what's happening, the cartels have figured out we have an appetite for opioids and stimulants. And so now they have taken over mass production of these synthetic drugs, selling them to the United States through some channels that they've already have established. But it's resulting in 218,000 people in the last 2 years passing away from drug overdoses. And if you look, 70% of those deaths had fentanyl somehow mixed into the equation. So what is fentanyl? Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that's commonly used in a medical setting, surgeries, pain management. It's a controlled substance that's 50 times more powerful than morphine, 100 times more than heroin. I'm sorry, flip-flop that. 100 morphine, 50 heroin. Normally, legal fentanyl is under the supervision of a medical provider in a hospital or some sort of controlled setting. Well, what we're going to talk about today is illicit fentanyl. So 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. This is why we're in the situation that we're in with the number of overdose deaths that we're having. And you're all probably wondering, what's 2 milligrams look like? I'm about to show you here. It's kind of startling. That's all it takes right there. 2 milligrams is enough to kill an average human being. So painting a bigger picture of the situation that we're in, I thought you'd like to see the seizures. What I mean by that, seizures, like law enforcement confiscations of fentanyl. In 2023, DEA seized more than 80 million fentanyl-laced fake pills and nearly 12,000 pounds of fentanyl powder. That's equivalent to more than 390 million lethal doses of fentanyl. Now, it's a big number, but what's going to pop up here in a second is going to paint that picture a little bit more for you. That's enough to kill every person in the United States. That's just what we took off the streets. That's not what got through into the communities. That's just what we physically took off the streets. What about Kentucky? You can see that you're all also experiencing some challenges. In 2022, you had 2,135 Kentuckians die from an overdose. 90% of those were fentanyl related. 2023, the number declined a little bit, down to 1,984, and fentanyl was responsible for about 80% of those. The most at risk, age 35 to 44. Overdose is the leading cause of death in this country. It's not car accidents, it's not gun violence. It's drug overdoses. Fentanyl is responsible for driving that problem. Some stories from across the country. This one that happened in Tennessee while I was the Assistant Special Agent in charge in Tennessee. We had 2 teenage girls pass away at a school in West Tennessee from fentanyl that they received from another student. And that student, the third student who survived, ended up being charged with murder for the deaths of the other 2. So if fentanyl's not bad enough on its own, drug dealers are also mixing with cocaine and methamphetamine to drive addiction. So sometimes the person who thinks they're using cocaine, like these 5 West Point cadets, will overdose because there's fentanyl within the cocaine or methamphetamine. This one happened toward the tail end of my career. Like I said, I retired this past year. And this was one of the stories that really hit home. This is in New York City. There was a baby at a daycare who was exposed to fentanyl and passed away. Like I said, that 2 milligrams at the tip of the pencil is all it takes for a normal human being. Can you imagine what it would take for an infant to pass away? It wouldn't be much. So how's this happening? Again, we're talking about illicit fentanyl. So, unfortunately, the cartels figured out that we have an appetite for synthetic drugs. And they partnered with organizations over in the Far East to get chemicals to produce these. And the chemicals will come into Mexico from places like China. And the cartels will have chemists standing by, and they start mass producing highly addictive, highly pure crystal methamphetamine, fentanyl, and then distributing it throughout the United States through established routes they already had for cocaine trafficking. The worst part about this is the chemicals are limitless. They're coming in from foreign sources that we don't have control over, and they're cheap. And not only are they cheap, it's cheap to make these drugs. It's not expensive. You're not waiting for a crop. You're not waiting for like climate to get better so you have a better cultivation of a plant. You just need some chemistry and some chemicals. So they even got more brazen. The cartels have decided that Americans like pills more than powder, and they figured out a way to replicate our most abused pharmaceutical drugs and make them look exactly like them. These are produced daily overseas. People believe they're getting Xanax. People believe they're getting Adderall, Oxycontin. But in fact, it's a fake pill that's laced with fentanyl. This is an authentic oxycodone produced here in the United States. This is a fake oxycodone. This is what they're doing. They're making things look like our drugs to drive addiction and also do great harm to each community here in the United States. So this one's an interesting one. So over the span of the last several years, our DEA laboratory started monitoring, okay, how many pills that we seize contain that 2 milligrams or more, that lethal dose of fentanyl. And it started out in 2019, 26%. And it rose the next year, and it rose the next year. Now finally, we're at 7 out of every 10 pills analyzed at our lab contain that 2 milligrams or more. I told you this is not a pretty picture, but just want to be honest and transparent with everybody. What is really going on here? This is why we have over 100,000 people a year dying of overdoses. And the worst part about it is, a lot of times, it's getting to our youth, and social media is amplifying that. You know, when I first started with DEA, we used to have a personal relationship with the drug dealer to, you know, establish rapport, meet them, talk to them, and exchange money for drugs. Now, they're operating in the shadows on social media, and you never have to meet them. You don't need a personal relationship. And I'll show you how that works. So drug dealers will advertise, like these two examples right here, that they have product. They'll use Facebook Messenger, Snapchat, Instagram, and they'll just put a post up that they have things for sale. You know, going through those scrolls we're talking about, right? Oh, look at that. They'll direct, after someone sees that they have drugs for sale and they want to purchase them, they normally will pivot to an encrypted app. Now that's WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, to arrange the transaction with the customer. So again, they're operating in the shadows. They're underground. They're not being out there in the open. They're using these devices to conceal their activities. Finally, they got to pay for the drugs, right? So what they do is they pivot into e-commerce, Zello, PayPal, ways of getting the monies from the, and they've never met. They've never actually saw each other. It's all done in this virtual space, but guess what? The drugs are delivered to the customer somehow from a person they never met. Show up on our doorstep at their house. And this is also something that's a little alarming. There are emoji codes that kids will use to talk about drugs. Who's got them? Who's selling them? I need drugs. Post things. As an agent, early on in my career, I did a lot of wiretaps and people with talking code. They would actually, over the wiretaps, you'd have to figure out what they're talking about because they were very cryptic. That's what this is. This is just another form of it. This is just a form of drug codes now in the modern day. Texting and over social media. This is stuff that parents should be looking out for, though. This is why I have the slide up. Because if you see these combinations, and you see these emojis, something's going on, you need to have a conversation. Recently, we have, unfortunately, when I say we, my former employer, DEA, released a public safety alert about online pharmacies. And so it's not only like going into social media or the dark web to find drug dealers and purchase drugs. They're so brazen now, they're actually putting things on the regular web, online pharmacy, buy your Adderall here, buy your Xanax here. And it's all fake drugs. It's not real. They're fentanyl tablets. And in this case, I think it was being operated out of the Dominican Republic, where they had folks buying this stuff here in the United States, taking it, overdosing, and dying. So I thought it'd be helpful for people to see what are some red flags that a website's not legitimate. First one, they sell prescription drugs without requiring a valid prescription from a healthcare provider. Second one is the drugs are offered much cheaper prices than what would typically be in the market. Third, the list prices are in a foreign currency. Does not contain a proof of valid pharmacy state license or DEA registration. The medicine arrives in a broken or damaged packaging or in a foreign language. And the medicine does not have an expiration date or is expired. And lastly, it looks different from what you've received in the past. Solutions. Narcan, I can't emphasize how important this is to have on hand, whether it's in your home, in your schools, in your car. This could save a life. And if we didn't have this, that 200,000 plus number would be probably double, if not more. So I strongly encourage everybody to have something you can pick up at your pharmacy. It used to be regulated where you had to have a prescription, now you don't. It's great just to have on hand in the event of an emergency. You could truly save a life. So if we thought fentanyl wasn't bad enough, the drug dealers have decided that they can make things better for the addicts by mixing an animal tranquilizer in the fentanyl. And the reason I put this up here is to show you that yes, it's being done, but also to have a very important conversation. Narcan, what I just showed you, the naloxone, isn't effective on this because it's not an opioid. So you might see somebody overdosing that took some fentanyl mixed with xylazine, but the truth is the Narcan might not save them because the animal tranquilizer, it's ineffective against it. So, in summary, I put this thing, Just Say No. I'm actually dating myself, living 50 years old, and I remember Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign as a kid. You know, it's a big deal, red ribbon, all that stuff. But so I kind of morphed it for the slide presentation to say Just Say No. I picked out a few bullets just so you could have some takeaways from the presentation. First thing, no legitimate prescription pill can be purchased on social media, period. There's none. 2, just one fake pill is dangerous and can be deadly. Even a half pill. I've seen stories where 2 kids split a pill. Well, guess what? Half of it was probably 4 milligrams of fentanyl, and the other one was 1 milligram, and the one that took the 4 passed away. So remember, 1 pill or even a half a pill can be deadly. Never take medicine that wasn't prescribed to you by your own doctor. Seems like a pretty simple rule, but that should be a no-brainer for all of us, given the situation that we're in. This is very important conversations to have with our kids. Fentanyl's being concealed in other street drugs like cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine. So if you think it's cocaine, it could be, but it also could be cocaine mixed with fentanyl. This one's probably the most important, is to have open and honest conversations with your kids about drugs and the dangers of fentanyl and fake pills. Give them exit strategies. They're going to be put in horrible situations. They're going to be in environments where peer pressure and things are going to be fully in play. And we have to talk to them and give them avenues to get out of those things, whatever it is. So I have to mention my son, Jack Pritts. He's 8 years old. And he said, "Daddy, will you please mention my name during the presentation and let him know that I saw this?" And we talked about it. I said, "Absolutely." So I'm glad I got to work that in somehow into the presentation. But I've already started, it's a slow drip with kids, and I've already started with him and his friends about this stuff. I don't know if the traditional way of doing it works anymore with kids. Try to be creative. Try to think of ways you can connect with them. Sitting down at the dinner table for 2 hours to talk about this stuff, I just don't think is as effective as it once was. So little things, even at 8 years old, you know, it will go a long way with the kids as they develop. Resources. DEA has a wonderful campaign called One Pill Can Kill. If you go to their website, they have things on there for teenagers, for parents, toolkits. They have stuff for seniors even. It provides information, up-to-date data on what's going on, but also it has free resources for everybody to use to help raise awareness for what's going on, but also educate everybody. A local one, which I think is just by far one of the better ones in the United States, is the Kentucky State Police have a program called the Angel Initiative. This initiative, it allows for people who are struggling just to come into any state police barracks and say, hey, I need help. No questions asked, they go get them help. That's a tremendous resource. I'm very impressed by that, coming from a law enforcement background. But that's the end of my presentation. I'm sorry to fire through that because I know we're on a little limited time, but I'll be up here for some questions if you have any.
Thank you, Brett.